Okay, so I welcome you to this particular class on Greek theatre, part 2. Last day we dealt with some of the topics, and those topics were we talked about ancient Greek theatre, where it originated. We talked about tragedy. We talked about Dionysius, and I also told you that Dionysius was actually the god of wine, and he was the son of Zeus. And Zeus is considered to be the supreme god of ancient Greek mythology. Then we had a little discussion about the major playwrights of Greek theatre. As I told you, there were three people who were writing tragedies at that point in time. The first was Aeschylus, the second is Sophocles, and the third is Euripides. These are the three writers who were writing tragedies at that point in time. These are actually the names of the writers, okay? These are not the names of tragedies. You need to be very clear about it. Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides are actually the name of tragedians, okay? The man who was writing comedy at that point in time, the name of that man is Aristophanes, Aristophanes, and this is he is the only writer writing during the ancient Grecian age, who was writing comedies during the ancient Grecian age. So the name of that man is Aristophanes, okay? We talked about tragedy, and these are some of the features of tragedy that we had a discussion on. We talked about the definition of tragedy, that tragedy is an imitation of an action that is serious, complete, and of a certain magnitude, and through pity and fear, effecting the proper purgation. And we also had a discussion on why do we go to a theater to watch tragedy? Because if tragedy actually makes us cry or teary eyed, we cry at the end of tragedy, then the question naturally arises, why do we go to a theater to watch tragedy, or why do we go to a theater to cry? Okay, so these are the reasons why we watch tragedy. And we ended our class at this point, at this juncture, where we were discussing about the four basic elements of tragedy. So we'll be starting our class from this particular juncture, from this particular place. So what are the four basic elements of tragedy? And we will be discussing about these basic elements in today's lecture. So the four basic elements of tragedy are, number one, as you can see on screen, mimesis, catharsis, peripeteia, and anagnosis. So these are the four basic elements of tragedy: mimesis, catharsis, peripeteia, and anagnosis. Now we will discuss each and every term. Let's go on to our next slide. Okay, so we will be starting our discussion with an elaboration of what mimesis is. You need to understand that when you go through the dictionary meaning of mimesis, you will find that mimesis is actually a Greek word which has been translated into English as imitation. And the word imitation means copy. Okay, imitation is a rough translation of mimesis, because mimesis is an umbrella term. We have seen an umbrella, okay, it has many spokes. So one of those spokes is imitation. Mimesis is not only about imitation or copy, okay, it is something more than that. But when we go through the dictionary meaning of it, we find that the critics have roughly translated mimesis into imitation or copy. Now, what do you mean by an imitation or copy? Suppose I am painting something. I am inspired by nature. I see a bird in nature. I fall in love with that particular bird, and I decide to paint that particular thing. So what I am trying to do is I am trying to copy from the original object, and the original object is the bird, and I'm trying to paint that particular object onto a piece of paper. So that is an imitation or a copy. Okay, so mimesis is roughly translated as imitation, but as I told you, it is more than imitation. So let us briefly go through the points that I have written down, and then I will again come back to an elaboration of what mimesis is. Okay, So mimesis is the imitation of life in art and nature. Okay, now imitation jewelry, I think girls are quite accustomed to what imitation jewelry is all about. That is not real gold, that is just an imitation of gold. It is gold plated, not gold actually. So that is an imitation. Similarly, mimesis is the imitation, means a copy of life in art and literature. That means whatever we find in art and literature is just a copy of life, is just an imitation of real life. जो हम लोग अपनी आंखों के सामने देखते हैं आर्ट एंड लिटरेचर में, उसी का रिप्रेजेंटेशन हमें मिलता है. ठीक है, दैट इज जस्ट अ कॉपी ऑफ व्हाट वी सी इन लाइफ. Now we move on to the second point in this particular slide. Aristotle and Plato, the two Greek geniuses, spoke of mimesis as a representation of nature. Now, as I told you last day, that Plato was the teacher of Aristotle and Socrates was the teacher of Plato. So you have famous individuals, and definitely you must have heard the names of Plato and Aristotle as well as Socrates, in fact. So Socrates is the teacher of Plato, and Plato is the teacher of Aristotle. Now, when it comes to mimesis, both Plato and Aristotle's views on mimesis are a bit different. Okay, they have a kind of a contradiction. कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन का मतलब है एरिस्टोटल और प्लेटो के व्यूज़ माइमेसिस के लिए थोड़े कॉन्ट्रडिक्टरी हैं, थोड़े ऑपोजिट्स हैं, दोनों के व्यूज़ अलग हैं, लेकिन एक कॉमन बात है दोनों में. देयर इज़ अ कॉमन लिंक बिटवीन द टू. बोथ ऑफ देम कंसिडर माइमेसिस एज ए re-hyphen presentation. If you look into the line properly, you will find that I have written re-hyphen presentation of nature. I read the second line again. Aristotle and Plato, the two Greek geniuses, spoke of mimesis as a re-hyphen presentation of nature. Now, the third point, if you go through the third point, I think that re-hyphen presentation becomes a bit clear. What I have mentioned in the third line is re-hyphen presentation is different from representation. Okay, re-hyphen presentation is different from representation. Now the question naturally arises कि what is the difference between re-hyphen presentation and representation? Now what is the difference? Representation, first let us completely understand the meaning of representation. Suppose, as I told you, I gave you the first example, that I see a bird sitting on a tree, and I decide to paint that bird on a piece of paper. Definitely painting will always be on a piece of paper. Okay, I painted that particular bird on a piece of paper. I colored it, and what happened was that that particular representation or the painting that I have actually done appears to be far more beautiful, far more colorful, far more variegated than the real bird. So do you think that it is just a representation? No, it is a re-hyphen presentation. Suppose in today's world, in the 21st century, when we go through the play stores that we have certain applications like Beauty Plus. We have applications like Snapseed. Okay, what happens with these particular applications? We click a selfie, and after clicking a selfie, what do? We go to the Beauty Plus app and we edit that particular pic. So my selfie will appear far more beautiful than I actually am. Okay, there will be no pimples on my face. No marks will be seen or could be seen in the re-hyphen presentation, or the app that I have used, that Beauty Plus app, will actually showcase me as something more beautiful than I am actually. Okay, so that is re-hyphen presentation. That means in this particular concept of re-hyphen presentation, there is the idea, there is the essence of beauty inside it. So re hyphen presentation is a kind of beautifying what you see in nature. And this is the reason why re hyphen presentation is different from representation. Representation just means a copy of things. ठीक है, जस्ट आपने कहीं पर कुछ देखा और वैसे ही आपने पेंट कर दिया, ना ज़्यादा ना कम, जैसा था वैसे ही। जैसे आप सेल्फी खींचते हैं और वैसे ही डीपी में डाल देते हैं, तो दैट इज़ रिप्रेजेंटेशन, सिंपल। लेकिन हम लोग ऐसा नहीं करते, আমরা এটা করি না, কিন্তু আমরা ওটাকে বিউটি প্লাস ক্যামেরায় তুলি। तो व्हाट हैपन्स इज कि वो और ज़्यादा खूबसूरत दिखता है। ठीक है, सो आर्ट एंड लिटरेचर व्हेन दे इमिटेट लाइफ, जब भी आर्ट और लिटरेचर लाइफ को इमिटेट करता है, लाइफ को कॉपी करता है, तो वो उसको ब्यूटिफाई करता है। ठीक है, एंड दिस इज़ द रीज़न वाई आई से दैट माइमेसिस इज एक्चुअली अ री hyphen presentation, and re hyphen presentation is different from representation. তার মানেটা কি হলো? মাইমেসিসের ভেতরে দুটো জিনিসই আমরা পেলাম। মাইমেসিসকে अंदर हमें दोनों चीज़ें मिली। What is that? We found representation. Obviously representation has to be there in mimesis, and from that representation we move on to re hyphen presentation. We beautify things. Okay, so mimesis involves or includes imitation, that is representation, plus re hyphen presentation. So if you formulate a kind of a thesis on this particular thing, or an equation on this particular topic, then the equation will be mimesis equals to representation plus re hyphen presentation, because it has to beautify it. ठीक है, now I have given you an example here. For example, if you paint a flower to be true to a real flower, suppose we are painting a flower. I saw a rose or a sunflower and I'm trying to paint a flower. So what happens is, it is a copy of what you see as a flower. Definitely it is a copy, means a representation of the flower. But the idea inherent in a flower is the idea of beauty. And this is what I was trying to mean, that we move from representation to re hyphen presentation. Okay, so re hyphen presentation captures the concept of beauty which is behind the natural phenomenon. I suppose this point is clear to you. Now we move on to the next point. Now mimesis not only functions to recreate existing objects or elements of nature, but also beautifies, improves upon and universalizes them. ठीक है, this is the point that I mentioned earlier, that the function of mimesis is to recreate existing objects. Definitely I will be painting a flower, but the purpose of mimesis is also to beautify, to improve upon and then universalize them. Okay, the next point in this particular slide is, mimesis is the re hyphen presentation of reality in art and literature. I suppose this point is clear to you by now. It is both an imitation of nature and an artistic expression of the essence behind it. All these points refer to the same thing that I explained a bit earlier. The difference between representation and re hyphen presentation is what you need to understand when you deal with mimesis. In fact, there is a difference between the way Plato handles mimesis and Aristotle handles mimesis. Since this is an introductory class, we won't get into the complexity of their battle regarding mimesis. This is just a simple concept of mimesis that I have presented in front of you. So after mimesis, we move on to our next topic, that is catharsis. This was a topic that we dealt last day while we were dealing with the introductory lecture. Now, what is catharsis? When we see a good tragedy, what happens at the end is there is a kind of a emotion that wells up. Okay, and that emotion actually is displayed by the tears that we have in our eyes after the end of a good tragedy. We actually cry at the end of a good tragedy. Each and every tragedy actually affects us. So what is catharsis? Catharsis is the purging of the emotions of pity and fear while viewing a tragedy. So, after watching a tragedy, what we have is we have two emotions. What are those two emotions? One is pity and the other is fear. Now, why pity? Pity for the protagonist, because when we go through with Oedipus Rex, written by Sophocles, we will find that Oedipus has done nothing wrong. Nothing wrong consciously, actually. He has done, definitely, he has done wrongs. He has murdered his father and married his mother. Okay, Oedipus, if you go through the story of Oedipus, you will find that Oedipus murders his father and marries his mother, but this was done unconsciously. He was not aware of the fact that he was actually doing this. Okay, so what happens at the end of the tragedy is when Oedipus comes to know about it, he blinds himself. वो अपने आप को अंधा कर लेता है, ठीक है. एंड वी एज ऑडियंस वी फील पिटी फॉर एडिपस. वाई? बिकॉज हम लोग कहते हैं बेचारे के साथ बहुत बुरा हुआ, उसने तो जानबूझ के कुछ किया ही नहीं है, ठीक है. ओके, सो पिटी एंड फियर वाइल ভিউইং. ফিয়ার কিস বাত का? ভয় কিসের? এটা আমাদের সাথেও হতে পারে. দ্য ফিয়ার ইজ অডিয়েন্স ফিলস দ্য সেম থিং ক্যান হ্যাপেন টু দেম অলসো. So catharsis is about two emotions, pity and fear. In fact, if you go through a detailed reading of catharsis on Google or Aristotle's Poetics, actually Aristotle wrote many books, and one of the books which is very important for our understanding of tragedy and these concepts is Poetics. Poetics, Poetics, written by Aristotle. You will find this particular concept ingrained in that particular book, and in that particular book we find that catharsis is not only about pity and fear, it is also about the purgation of emotion. जब भी हम लोग प्याज काटते हैं, अगर आप लोग कभी प्याज आप लोगों ने काटा होगा घर पे, যখন प्याज আমরা काटी, what happens is we क्राई, क्योंकि प्याज का जो ये होता है आपका रस होता है वो आँखों में जाता है एंड वी स्टार्ट क्राइंग. तो कई बार मम्मी कहती है कि ठीक है आँखों से पानी बहने दो, इससे क्या होता है कि इम्प्योरिटीज़ जितनी भी हैं आपकी आँखों में वो सब धुल जाती हैं, ठीक है. यूजली आवर मॉम सेज दैट this is what actually happens. The tears from your eyes purifies the eyes of its impurities. So similarly, after watching a tragedy, when we cry at the end, when we become teary-eyed, what is it actually? It is actually the purification of the soul. आत्मा की काइंड ऑफ एक शुद्धिकरण होता है आत्मा का जब हम लोग लास्ट में रोते हैं. तो इट इज़ also about the purgation of the soul. It is also about the cleansing. जैसे যেমন রাতের সময় আমরা ঘুমানোর আগে রোজ ওয়াটার দিয়ে মুখটাকে পরিষ্কার করি. কেন করি সেটাকে? বিকজ আমাদের মুখের ওপরে যে ইম্পিউরিটিসগুলো আছে সেটাকে আমরা রিমুভ করার চেষ্টা করি উইথ দ্য হেল্প অফ কটন অ্যান্ড রোজ ওয়াটার. So similarly, these tears at the end of a tragedy is actually a purgation or cleansing of the soul, soul. Okay, and it is a release of emotional tension. It is a release of emotional tension, and as I told you, catharsis is a Greek word and refers to the cleansing of the emotions of the characters. Okay, so this is what catharsis is all about. Now, before going into peripetia, I would like to first tell you a brief summary of what Oedipus is all about, because we need to understand the story of Oedipus to come to a proper understanding of peripetia and anagnosis. So let me in short tell you the story of what Oedipus is. Okay, Oedipus when he was born, his father King Laius, the name of Oedipus's father was King Laius, Laius. The astrologer told King Laius that this son of yours, ये जो लड़का है आपका, ये बड़ा होके आपका मर्डर करेगा और अपनी माँ से शादी करेगा, ठीक है. There was this astrologer or soothsayer who told King Laius that this son will grow up and will be your nemesis, and he will also marry his mother. And so the king ordered his wife. The name of king's wife is Jocasta. He ordered his wife to kill the son. ठीक है, to kill Oedipus. So what the queen did, so the story is somewhat like this, that King Laius decided to kill the son, and so he ordered his wife Jocasta to kill this particular son called Oedipus. Now the point is, what Jocasta did was she ordered her servant, उसने अपने नौकर को इस बच्चे को दे दिया और कहा कि इसको कहीं जंगल में जाके मार दो. तो दैट पर्टिकुलर मैन टुक द बॉय टू द जंगल और वहीं पर उसने उसको छोड़ दिया ताकि वो मर जाए. बट फॉर्चुनेटली वहाँ पर एक शेफर्ड आ गया, जो भेड़े देखते हैं, शेफर्ड ताদেরকে বলা হয় যারা ক্যাটলসগুলোকে দেখে তাদেরকে শেফার্ড বলে, ল্যাম্বকে যারা দেখে, শিপকে যারা দেখে তাদেরকে শেফার্ড বলা হয়. আর শেফার্ড কামস টু दैट पर्टिकुलर प्लेस एंड ही रेस्क्यूज द चाइल्ड. उसने उस बच्चे को बचा लिया. एंड आफ्टर taking him up from the jungle, the shepherd takes Oedipus to his house, and ultimately Oedipus is raised by किंग पॉलीबस ऑफ कोरिंथ. कोरिंथ बोल के एक जगह है जहाँ के राजा की अपनी कोई औलाद नहीं है, সেখানকার রাজার নিজের কোনো সন্তান নেই. সো হোয়াট কিং পলিবাস ডাজ ইজ হি অ্যাডপ্টস এডিপাস. সো এডিপাস গ্রোজ আপ in that particular house of King Polybus and his wife. But when Oedipus grows up, he comes to know that he is not the biological son of King Polybus. Okay, he is not the biological son of King Polybus. Now Oedipus runs away from the palace to the temple of Apollo. याद रखना उस समय ये एक कस्टम था कि जब भी आपको भविष्य के बारे में कुछ जानना हो तो ओरेकल्स होते थे. ओरेकल्स मतलब भविष्यवाणियाँ. ये कहाँ होते थे? देयर वाज अ प्लेस कॉल्ड डेल्फी, DELPHI, जहाँ पर एक मंदिर था. किसका मंदिर था? इट वाज द टेम्पल ऑफ अपोलो. वहाँ पर जो प्रीस्ट काम करते थे, जो पुरोहित, যে পুরোহিতরা সেই মন্দিরে কাজ করতো, তারা ভগবানের সাথে নাকি কনসাল্ট করে তোমাকে তোমার ভবিষ্যৎ বলতো. তো Oedipus goes to that particular place and he comes to know that he will actually kill his father and marry his mother. Okay, one thing is to be rectified here, that Oedipus was not aware of the fact that King Polybus and his wife are not his biological parents. He wasn't aware. As of now उसको नहीं पता था. तो जब ओरेकल में ये उसको पता चलता है कि वो अपने पिताजी का खून करेगा और अपनी माँ से शादी करेगा, तो he decides not to go back to Corinth. ओके, तो वो कोरिंथ अपने घर वापस नहीं जा रहा है क्योंकि उसको लग रहा था कि वही उसके बायोलॉजिकल पेरेंट्स हैं. तो ही वॉन्डर्स अराउंड, वो इधर उधर घूम रहा है. एंड अल्टीमेटली एक रास्ते पे एक आदमी के साथ उसका झगड़ा होता है. ही किल्स दैट मैन एंड एज रीडर्स वी वेरी वेल नो कि ये आदमी कौन है. दिस इज हिज ओन father. But Oedipus is not aware of that this particular man whom he is murdering or whom he is killing is his father. So this was an unconscious action on the part of Oedipus. Okay, so Oedipus, after killing his father, enters a new country that goes by the name of Thebes, Thebes. And as readers we know that Thebes was the place where Oedipus was actually born. यहीं पर तो Oedipus का जन्म हुआ था. When he comes to Thebes, अच्छा, Thebes से একটা कर्स আছে. There is the Sphinx. ठीक है, एक Sphinx है, SPHINX. Sphinx is a mythological creature. ঠিক है, जिसका एक प्रश्न है, মানে পুরো থিবসে এর অত্যাচার রয়েছে, স্ফিংক্সের একটা অত্যাচার রয়েছে. বাট হি হ্যাজ আ কোশ্চেন. দ্য পার্সন হু আনসার্স দ্য কোশ্চেন কারেক্টলি, the Sphinx has promised that once he gets his answer, he will leave the land of Thebes. Okay, so Oedipus comes to this particular place called Thebes and he answers the question correctly. What is the question, by the way? The question is, name a particular animal who has 4 legs in the morning, who walks on 4 legs in the morning, walks on two legs in the afternoon and walks on three legs इन द इवनिंग. ऐसे एक जानवर का नाम बताइए जो सुबह के वक्त चार पैरों पे चलता है, दोपहर के वक्त दो पैरों पे चलता है और रात के वक्त तीन पैरों पे चलता है. ठीक है. What is the name of that particular animal? Oedipus answers the question. The name of that particular animal is man, human being. क्यों? ह्यूमन बीइंग क्यों? बिकॉज ह्यूमन बीइंग जब छोटा होता है, बच्चा होता है, तो उसके जीवन की वो सुबह होती है. ठीक है. तो वो चार पैरों पे, बच्चा देखना दो पैर दो हाथों पे चलता है. अच्छा, उसके बाद आता है दोपहर. दोपहर मतलब यंग एज. यंग एज मानुष दुटो पाए हाटे. और इवनिंग माने ही इज इन हिज ओल्ड एज, so he walks on three legs because two legs and a stick. So Oedipus answers the question correctly, and what is the reward of Oedipus for answering the question correctly? He marries the queen of Thebes, who is a widow. विडो का मतलब we know what widow means actually. विधवा जिसको हम लोग कहते हैं, उसका हस्बैंड मर चुका है. And as readers, at every point in the story, we very well are acquainted with the fact कि it is Oedipus himself who has killed the king. He has not only killed the king of Thebes, but he has also killed his own very father. Okay, Oedipus is not aware of this, but as readers we are very well aware of the fact. So Oedipus marries Jocasta. Okay, so as readers again we know that Jocasta is the mother of Oedipus, and Oedipus again has children from Jocasta. Jocasta से उसके बच्चे भी होते हैं. So after a few years of being the king of Thebes, Thebes में शांति नहीं आई है. Thebes में अभी भी प्लेग फैला हुआ है, महामारी फैली हुई है. तो as the play begins, we find that the common citizens of Thebes have assembled before Oedipus, requesting him to help them come out of this particular play. Ultimately, there's this shepherd who comes to the place and he announces before Oedipus that his father has actually died. Which father is the shepherd referring to? He is referring to Polybus. Okay, he is referring to Polybus, the king of Corinth has actually died. So Oedipus becomes very happy when he comes to know that his father has died. Why is he happy? जब उसको खबर मिलती है कि किंग पॉलिबस मर गए हैं, why is he happy? क्योंकि अब वो जो प्रोफेसी थी कि he will murder his father and marry his mother, वो प्रोफेसी, half of the prophecy has gone wrong. ठीक है. क्यों? बिकॉज एडिपस एखोनो जाने ना जे तार बायोलॉजिकल पेरेंट्स किंतु पॉलिबस आर और वाइफ नॉय एक्चुअली. ठीक है. उसके अपने पिताजी को तो उसने खुद ही मार दिया है. एडिपस इज नॉट अवेयर ऑफ दिस, बट अल्टीमेटली व्हेन एडिपस कम्स टू नो ऑफ इट दैट दे वेयर नॉट हिज बायोलॉजिकल पेरेंट्स and his biological parents are Jocasta, whom he has actually married, and the man he has actually murdered on the road. When he comes to know this, what happens is Jocasta kills herself, she hangs herself, अपने आप को फांसी लगा लेती है. एंड अल्टीमेटली एडिपस क्या करता है? एडिपस अपने आप को अंधा बना लेता है. ठीक है. मतलब वो भी सफ़र कर रहा है. वाई इज एडिपस सफरिंग? बिकॉज एडिपस नोज दैट ही हैज़ डन समथिंग रॉन्ग. ठीक है. अनकॉन्शियसली दो, उसने जानबूझ के नहीं किया है, जेनेबुझे करेनी, बट ही हैज़ डन समथिंग रॉन्ग. So what happens is he blinds himself. Okay, so throughout the story what we find is we find a king called Oedipus. As the play begins, we find that Oedipus is sitting on a throne and the citizens of Thebes have actually come to him requesting him to save Thebes from the plague that has spread throughout the land. And we find Oedipus as a king who is waiting to take action. He is a kind of a king who loves his citizens, who loves his subjects. Okay, but ultimately Oedipus comes to know that this plague is actually the result of his own doings. उसने अपने पिताजी का खून किया है, तो ये जो महामारी है वो उसके अपने वजह से है. So Oedipus does not blame others for his own faults. ठीक है. He accepts that he is the one to be blamed, and this is the reason why he blinds himself. So what is peripetia? Peripetia is a kind of a self-discovery. It is a kind of a reversal of circumstances in drama. You need to understand, when Oedipus comes to know that he is the one who is to be blamed, he is the one who has done each and every wrong. ठीक है, वो जो रिकॉग्निशन है, वो जो रियलाइजेशन है कि मैंने ही सब गलत किया है, उसको हम लोग इंग्लिश में कहते हैं, ग्रीक भाषा में कहते हैं एनाग्नोरिसिस. रिकॉग्निशन और जो रियलाइजेशन है उसको हम लोग कहते हैं एनाग्नोरिसिस. तो वंस Oedipus has that anagnosis, once he comes to an understanding that he is the one to be executed, or he is the one who has done all the wrongs in the country, so that is anagnosis. What happens after a recognition? What happens when you discover that you are yourself to blame? क्या होता है? वो उसका जो सिचुएशन है फ्रॉम हैप्पी टू सैड की तरफ हम लोग अब शिफ्ट करते हैं, तो उसको हम लोग रिवर्सल कहते हैं. रिवर्सल तभी पॉसिबल है, रिवर्सल इज ओनली पॉसिबल व्हेन यू हैव एनाग्नोरिसिस. तो पेरीपेटिया के पहले हमेशा एनाग्नोरिसिस आता है. एनाग्नोरिसिस का मतलब है रिकॉग्निशन और रियलाइजेशन. जब आप रिकॉग्नाइज करेंगे, जब आप रियलाइज करेंगे, जैसे इडिपस ने रियलाइज किया, तभी आपका रिवर्सल होगा. रिवर्सल क्यों? बिकॉज इन अ ट्रेजेडी वी फाइंड अ ट्रेजिक हीरो मूविंग फ्रॉम हैप्पीनेस टू मिजरी, moving from happiness to sadness, okay, from happiness to misery, not because of any flaw in his character but because of an error of judgment. तो what Oedipus is going through is a reversal. और ये reversal मतलब क्या है? reversal का मतलब होता है change from happiness to sadness. ठीक है, और ये रिवर्सल कब आता है? एनाग्नोरिसिस के बाद में आता है. बिकॉज फर्स्ट Oedipus has to know that he is the one to be blamed. So when he comes to know that he is the one who has murdered his father, that is anagnosis. And after that the change occurs. That change is called peripetia. Okay, so now we go through with peripetia and it becomes easier for you to understand what peripetia is all about. What is peripetia? It is a sudden change of events or reversal of circumstances in drama. Now in this particular point the word reversal becomes very important. Okay, it means reversal. Second point, it means reversal. The reversal of the hero's fortune from good to bad is basic to the plot of a tragedy. As I told you, the tragic hero moves from happiness to sadness. That change is the reversal or peripetia. When we see the destruction, fall and ruin of the hero, it causes both pity and fear. Okay, now catharsis can only arise. Catharsis, as we dealt with in our previous slide, catharsis can only come to the scene when we see the destruction, fall and ruin of the hero. Okay? When the hero goes through anagnosis and peripetia, then only we can come to catharsis. Catharsis, which implies pity and fear. So it is a moment of self-discovery for the protagonist of the story. And as Aristotle says, a man cannot become a hero until he can see the root of his own downfall. Okay, so Oedipus sees the root of his own downfall when he comes to know that he is the one to be blamed. Okay, so and this is the reason why Oedipus becomes a hero. Why does Oedipus become a hero even when he has murdered his father and married his mother? Yet he becomes a hero. Why? Because he rises in stature. He rises in dignity, in stature. Why? Because he accepts. He does not point he does not give excuses. He does not point fingers at others. He accepts that he is the one to be blamed. And herein he rises in stature. Okay, so a man cannot become a hero until he can see the root of his own downfall. And this point is very important because Oedipus becomes a hero only because he can see the root of his own downfall. Okay, now we come to anagnosis. As I was telling you, anagnosis always comes before peripetia. Now what is anagnosis? Anagnosis means recognition. It refers to the recognition or discovery by the protagonist of the nature, his own predicament, which leads to the resolution of the plot. The point is very simple. It deals with recognition or discovery by the protagonist. When Oedipus actually recognizes or discovers that he has murdered his father, I repeat the point again and again, for a proper understanding of anagnosis. So it's a recognition or discovery by Oedipus. Second point, it is a startling discovery that brings a change in the protagonist from ignorance to knowledge. As with Oedipus, before he comes to know that he is the one who has killed his father, he was ignorant. But in tragedy, we find that there is a journey of the protagonist from ignorance to knowledge. Ignorance means he was ignorant of the fact that he himself is to blame. Later on, he comes to an understanding that he is the one. So there is a journey of Oedipus from ignorance to knowledge. And definitely affects exchange in his fortune from good to bad. And ultimately what happens in a tragedy is the good fortune of the king changes into bad fortune. As I told you, this is what is meant by peripetia or reversal. Okay. The ideal moment of anagnosis coincides with peripetia or reversal of fortune. This is a point we have been referring to again and again. Now, what role does fate and destiny play in the life of these tragic heroes in Greek tragedy? In Greek tragedy, we find that fate or destiny is preordained. Okay, each and every character in the text, they know that their fate, their destiny is predestined. They are fatalist. अच्छा, जो लोग ये मानते हैं कि भाग्य पहले से ही लिखा होता है, उनको फेटलिस्ट कहते हैं. फेटलिस्ट का मतलब है जो ये मानते हैं फेट और डेस्टिनी पहले से ही लिखी हुई होती है. एवरीथिंग इज प्री ऑर्डेन्ड और प्री डेस्टिन्ड. सो इन अ ग्रीक ट्रेजेडी फेट और डेस्टिनी इज प्री ऑर्डेन्ड, पहले से ही सब डिटरमाइंड है. गॉड्सरा तो आगे ही बोले दिच्छे जे एडिपस एटा कोरबे एंड यू कैन नॉट चेंज फेट. ओके, you will never, you can try to struggle against it, you can struggle against destiny or fate, but you can never change it. So in a Greek tragedy, fate or destiny is preordained, one over which man has no control. Definitely we have no control over our destiny or fate. Tragedy provides a terrible insight into life where a man has no control over forces that predetermine to destroy him. Obviously, I have no control, or we in fact have no control over the forces of nature. It does not absolve a man of his guilt, but what is tragic and beyond remedy is that his punishment is far excess of his guilt. We recognize the human spirit that confronts the suffering with dignity and accepts it as a punishment for its folly. And this is also one of the reasons why Oedipus rises in stature at the end of the play, because Oedipus confronts the suffering with dignity. He accepts his punishment for his folly. Okay, he does not blame others. It is in this respect man enters into a dialogue with the power that destroys him, and the affirmation of his courageous spirit ennobles him and gives him dignity. The points I am referring to again and again, these are the points that I am referring to again and again, only to let you understand that Oedipus rises in dignity only because he does not surrender. We know, even when we know that fate and destiny is supreme, you cannot change your fate, you cannot change your destiny, yet that does not imply that you will surrender, you will think of fate as something dominating and let's move on, whatever is written will happen. No, Oedipus is not that kind of a character. Or in fact, King Laius, the father of Oedipus, was also not that kind of a character. These are people who are actually fighting against, they are struggling against fate. They are not giving up, they are not surrendering, and that is the affirmation of the courageous spirit. And this courageous spirit of fighting against fate or destiny, even when I know that I will lose at the very end of this particular war, that courageous spirit actually gives Oedipus dignity. Okay, and this is the reason why he rises in stature. Now, though man can never triumph over the powers that is remote and ruthless, man does not shy away from confronting them. Man knows that he will never win over destiny. But that does not mean that he will surrender. He will not shy away. Shy away means he will not surrender from confronting them. And that too with an awareness that in the fight with those unseen but powerful forces, he will be the loser at the end. The man knows that he will lose at the end, but yet he fights on. He does not give up. Okay? Now he fights not for a win. Oedipus is fighting not for a win, but for a certain defeat. He knows that he will be defeated, but The courageous spirit is important. Fighting against it is important. Okay. It is this profile in courage that makes man rise up and gain dignity despite all the physical and material losses he suffers. You need to, I can recommend you a particular tragedy written in the 20th century by a writer called J.M. Sin. The name of a tragedy, this is a one act tragedy, and the name of the tragedy is Riders to the Sea. Okay, Riders to the Sea. This is an extra reading, if extra recommended reading. If you can go through with Riders to the Sea, I suppose the text is available online. If it's not available, I will provide you the text to that particular thing. Go through the text and you will find that even in this particular text, a tragedy written in the 20th century by J.M. Sin deals with a particular lady who does not give up, who fights but does not surrender. In fact, this particular lady has 6 children, and all of them try to fight against their fate. They know that ultimately they will die, but they do not give up. Okay, and this is what Oedipus is also doing. And Oedipus was written before the birth of Jesus Christ, and I am talking of Riders to the Sea, written in the 20th century. It is this profile in courage that makes man rise up and gain dignity despite all the physical and material losses he suffers. Ancient Greek culture accepted fatalism, and this is what I was telling you. A person who believes in predestined kind of a thing is a fatalist or fatalism. The philosophy is fatalism, and the person who believes in fate is a fatalist. And man had no option except to face it. But in the confrontation, displaying courage was the one possible solace and comfort in the face of ill fortune. So the only thing that gives solace and comfort is your struggle, is your courage, is your confrontation with your destiny. That is important. Now, before we end this class, there are 2 points that are written here for you to ponder upon. Greek tragedy was written for the 5th century Athenians. Athenians means people living in Athens were known as Athenians. So Greek tragedy was written for the 5th century Athenians, and it presents the social, moral and emotional aspects that have a bearing on their lives. Okay. So the plays, when you go through Oedipus, you will find that the play actually presents the social, moral and emotional aspects that actually affect the life of affected the life of the Athenians. Okay. The second point is the plays. If you go through the plays of or the Greek tragedies that we have, actually, if you go through the plays, you will find that there is no reference to any contemporary issue. The plays do not have any reference to contemporary issues. The plays do not take up contemporary issues. There might be many reasons behind it, that the plays, if I start writing on contemporary issues, I might not be able to present my plays on stage. That is one of the scenarios that we still face in India. I suppose you cannot have a political play and criticize the ruling party, because in that case your play won't be displayed on stage. You will not get a chance to display your play on stage. So they never dealt with contemporary issues, but you will find that they actually brought out the social, moral and emotional aspects that have a bearing on their lives. Okay, so these are some of the points to ponder. And last but not the least, every week I will be giving you assignments. So the assignment for this week for you people is, there are 2 questions that you need to comment upon. The first question is, what is the difference between peripetia and anagnosis? This is the first question that you need to deal with in your assignment this week. The first question is the difference between peripetia and anagnosis. The difference between peripetia and anagnosis. And the second question that I'm giving you is actually the second question. Let us come to the second question first. What is Plato's view on mimesis? What is Plato's views on mimesis? What is Plato's view on mimesis? What is Plato's view on mimesis? And what is Aristotle's view on mimesis? what is Plato's view on mimesis, and what is Aristotle's view on mimesis. These are the two assignments that you have for this week. So the first question is the difference between peripety and anagnosis, and the second question is what is Plato's view on mimesis, and the sub question is what is Aristotle's view on mimesis. Okay, this will be your assignment for this week. This is an extra reading. The second question is a bit critical. You need to go through Google, and you need to Google Plato's view on mimesis, this and that. Search a bit over the net. I think your searching will help you more than my giving you an answer to this particular question. Okay, after you deal with your assignment, we will definitely talk about the differences in opinion on mimesis between Plato and Aristotle. So with this, I suppose we will end this session of ours. Hope you had a learning session. You learned a lot from this session, I suppose. If you have any queries regarding it, you can definitely contact me on WhatsApp. Okay, so with this, we end our